Live from the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. That is a good thing. I don't know how many people can hear us out there, but you guys can on the video, which is great. Hey, look, the reason we're doing this Florida State Miami weekend, that's Corey Clark. I'm Jeff. Tom's here. The crew is here. There's a ton of people here, obviously. Yeah. It's that weekend, man. It's the weekend.
And, man, Florida State's good again for this game. The last time you played them in this building, you were 3-6. Now 2 years later,
right?
You're 9-0. Yeah, you're either 3-6 when they beat them the 4th and 14.
A 4th and 14 that we'll always remember, but this time you're not hoping to have to pull one out like that. You know, you would hope that
you're not trying to just get bowl eligible. Like, you're trying to get playoff eligible, and that's what they're fighting for now.
So for Florida State, it's interesting to go into a game like this when you're heavily favored. I don't know what you like more, if there's more intrigue, obviously, in a game where the two teams are evenly matched, or when you're a heavy favorite with so much to lose. It's almost like you're nervous. You don't want to get out ahead of it. You realize that Miami is in trouble. Florida State's the better team, but they're also capable. Miami's not terrible.
Yeah, you know, to me it comes down to, just like it did last week and the week before and the week before that, is the quarterback matchup. You're going to win that. You should win that convincingly. I don't know who Miami's going to play at quarterback.
Let's hope it's Van Dyke, because he's looked terrible the last 3 weeks.
Awful. He looks broken. And if it's not him, it's going to be a freshman that has never played in an environment like this. So, and then you have Jordan Travis, who's starting his 36th consecutive game or whatever it is. So, man, yes, Miami's as good on the line of scrimmage as anybody you played, probably, when you factor in both sides of it. But, man, their offense has been a train wreck recently. You have a good defense, and if your receivers are playing, which we think they will.
So isn't that the game?
You have an elite offense.
Well, that's the game, right? If Florida State is healthy and they win against the run against Miami, this game is over quick. Because honestly, Miami's best chance is to shorten this game by running the football, not putting the game in their quarterback's hands, trying to get this into the third or fourth quarter where you put game pressure on Florida State. Because Florida State has so much more to lose than Miami. So you've got to get this into the second half if you're Miami. And the only way you do that is to shorten the game and run the ball effectively. Florida State has to sell out, I think, tomorrow against the run. If they're able to do that and stop it, put the game in Van Dyke or whomever's hands in that moment, good luck. I mean, Restrepo is a nice player. They've got a few nice players. Fletcher's a really good running back. Yeah. But I don't feel like Miami has enough to sustain offensive power throughout this game.
Well, what's their ceiling, man? Like, Florida State doesn't give up more than 20 points to anyone. So what's Miami's ceiling? 20, 22 if they play well? Are they going to hold Florida State under that? What's the race to? We think 24, 20?
So we do that every year, right? Like, I think years ago we started having fun with this, where we say, what is the race to the number, for those that don't know?
Because Florida State's way ahead. Like, you know what I mean? Florida State's car is a much better car than the one Miami's driving offensively.
Would you argue that Miami has to win this game 23-16?
Or 3-0? Like, with the way Van Dyke plays, man, who knows what he's got?
Like 23-17, 24-21, maybe, something like that. That's how Miami could win the game. Well, good luck. Florida State, outside of, the game against Pitt, obviously, and then my dad just got here. The game against Pitt, obviously, you don't have any of your receivers. Correct. I mean, like, any of them.
Right.
And you still score 24 on the road. There haven't been many moments where Florida State hasn't scored 30 or more. Can Miami even get to 30?
That's the question. And last week, remember, they scored 24. Well, they had one drive in at the 6 and the other drive in at the 1. Could I get a Tito's? Thank you.
A large Guinness.
Thank you. Taking care of.
You can tell it's the important. It's a live show here. Yeah.
So even when they didn't play well offensively, they had 2 drives that ended inside the 5, and they had 500 yards of offense and scored 24 points.
That's the best part of the last week's game, is that they had over 500 yards of offense
with one healthy receiver, essentially.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, no, you feel good about it. You really do. Don't turn it over. Don't give up big special teams plays.
That's
the
recipe. If you don't get, like, the way Duke could beat you, the way Duke had the lead
pick 6, right? Yeah.
That's how Miami can beat you.
Absolutely.
You give up one big play, which the defense did on their first or second drive. You turn the ball over in your own territory with some weird 4th down decisions, and then you have a pick 6 from your end zone, and all of a sudden it's a game and you're losing. That's how it can happen. And if that happens, there will be real game pressure on Florida State. Like, oh God, we can't blow this to this Miami team. So that's what I think they've handled every adversity they've faced this year. Every single situation they've handled well in the second half. So you still have confidence in it, but that's the recipe that you could get upset is some crazy things happen and you give them points.
I got that question earlier in the week, and I will say that, look, I want to point out that Miami has some real talent up front. The Bain kid's a stud.
Yeah.
You're going to have to chip him. He's a really good player. They have some
Take
talent.
off his face mask, he can't breathe.
But the safety's 6'5". They've got some talent. The weird part about Miami is they turn the ball over.
Yes, they do.
If they don't turn it over in these games, they're not going to overtime against Virginia.
Yeah.
They're not in these positions, but they do turn it over. And so, I know if we reverse it, if Florida State was a team that had turned it over 11 times in 4 weeks, 11, we would say, well, that's just who they are.
That's what they do.
At some point, that's what. But we don't do it with our opponents. Right. We always assume they won't turn it over.
Yeah.
But the trend has been that's what they do. Can you imagine this, Corey? You and I are kind of the wily veterans on the staff when it comes to Florida State football.
We're old. That's a polite way.
Well, but also we went before we were ever in media.
Yes, correct.
So that guy took me to games going all the way back to 1980, right? So, and your dad did the same. That guy did. Yeah. So we've seen this rivalry more than anybody else on staff. Yeah. We've seen this rivalry more than most people that we're talking to right now. If you turn the ball over on the road against in a rabid atmosphere, against a rival that's equipped to do something about it, unlike Wake,
right?
So you are in a position to see a boat race, to see an avalanche, to see a real a succession of points that you can't overcome. We've all watched that in this rivalry when somebody gets momentum, and the crowd goes crazy, and all of a sudden there's an infusion of energy. So tomorrow, Florida State's fans, and I'm talking to all of you out there, have got to be nuts.
Yeah,
got to go crazy. This is not a pep rally, but I am telling you now.
Snuggy Hill.
No.
Oh, you're telling this right here isn't a pep rally.
This is not a pep rally. But I'm saying, this is it. Get into this game. You've got a ruined quarterback right now. If Van Dyke starts this game, he's already shaky.
Yeah.
Let him throw a pick six and watch this thing spiral. And then what are you going to do? Replace him with a freshman?
Yeah.
Good luck with that. When they smell blood, there's blood in the water. I don't know. I feel good if you can start fast.
Yeah, the thing about this Miami team, though, that as weird as it is, they haven't shown a lot of quit.
They have fought, yeah.
They have, because there should have been a mutiny after the Georgia Tech game. They shouldn't have even shown up to practice after that. They didn't. 2 weeks later, they beat Clemson. And then I know they lost to North Carolina. They had the lead against North Carolina. Last week, their offense did diddly poo. And they still only gave up 1 or 2 touchdowns. They still fight. They've shown an ability to not just lay down like other Miami teams have. But they also haven't faced Florida State. This is the best team they've faced by far. It's the best offense. Well, North Carolina's got a very good offense. But it's the best team they've faced by far.
A complete team, yeah.
And Florida State, every game goes on one of these runs. Even last game where they didn't play well on offense by their standards and they didn't have any receivers, they finished it on a 24-0 run. They have one of those runs in every game. If they have one of those runs in this game, Miami might just decide, you know what? This sucks. I'm tired of watching this kid play quarterback. The season's already over. There could be some quit in there, and Florida State typically makes teams quit.
It's been oddly subtle, too, when Florida State goes on these runs. I don't know how you feel when you're watching it from the box, but when I watch this team, there are moments where I feel like, golly, the stops and starts and fits and all that are frustrating. And then all of a sudden I look up, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. They're up by 3 scores, and they've amassed over 400 yards of offense. For all of these empty runs and empty possessions and weird moments where they don't feel like they're flowing in any way, we're winning the game easily. Florida State's one of the weirdest teams in the country this year. How many times have you watched a game? The Southern Miss game, we scored 66 points in that game. All right.
Hey, shout out to Southern Miss, by the way. It's 2-game winning streak.
Nice win last night.
That helps the RPI.
I don't think it matters. It's not basketball. But I would tell you that, watching this team, there are days where you walk off that field and you get done covering the game and you go, they weren't that great. And then you go back and you go, well, he threw for 330. They ran for 107. He ended up scoring on 3 straight possessions. We won by 4 scores. I don't know. That's how Florida State beats you, is that slowly but surely you have empty possessions. They find a way to score. They figure out what it is that you're doing. And Adam Fuller has been awesome in the second half of the season. He's been awesome the whole season, really. Now, I'll grant you, I mean, it's similar to last year. They have had runs against bad quarterbacks and bad teams, but he dominates the way you're supposed to. So Miami is indicating a downward trend on offense with a quarterback who is brittle.
Yeah.
This is reason to get excited about what this defense might do.
Also, it's just this game is a reason to get excited, man. I just go back to the Duke game. It was Duke. It was Duke, and that place was electric. You know what I mean? Like, it was Duke.
Oh, yeah, but that was,
And that was 6-0 Duke. I mean, that was 6-0 Florida State. Well, now you're 9-0. You've already clinched up Charlotte. You're literally 4 wins away. 3 because North Alabama's a given. So you're 3 wins away from the playoff. And one of your last real home game, I know everybody come to North Alabama. I'm sure it'll be an awesome time. It is senior day, so, send out Jordan Travis in style. But
Corey, if you're 10-0, you're 11-0.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So this is it.
But I'm saying this is really your last home game to celebrate this team and to celebrate this quarterback and probably celebrate these wide receivers.
So there's a question, Super Chat, thank you.
So it's going to be very, very loud, and it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, which is cool.
So I'm going to ask you this question because I think you may be more objective than me on this. Matt writes, Jordan Travis is number 3 in Heisman odds on DraftKings. Can he still win the Heisman?
Yeah, he can. But weirdly, he can't win the Heisman if they keep beating everybody by 3 and 4 scores. He needs Heisman moments, i.e.,
the Florida game
last
a year
year's
ago.
Florida game. Because that Florida team wasn't very good, but if he's in the Heisman race
and he makes those plays,
and he does those plays, and we're like, oh, well, who are we going to give it to? Penix? I mean, his numbers are as good as Penix's. He doesn't throw for as many yards. Who does? And also, Penix might lose twice. You going to give it to Jaden Daniels? He beat Jaden Daniels and played just as well. He played better than Jaden Daniels.
Got 3 losses. At some point,
you would think that would matter. So who's in the, yes, he could still win it. Louisville winning helped because that can now be a top 10 matchup.
Could be.
People will be watching.
They still have to beat Miami and Kentucky.
They do, but it could be. Either way, it's going to be a top 25-ish matchup.
Yeah.
And he's going to have some magical plays.
Well, if he goes 400 tomorrow in 3 touchdowns and you win this game going away,
I still think people will be like, well, he beat Miami. Like, it's going to
That's what I mean.
It's going to take some, highlight plays, not just the numbers. Because the numbers, he's never going to win that battle with Penix.
No.
He can't win the numbers battle.
He's not going to win the battle with Bo Nix.
Right. Yeah, right. But he's played some real defenses. Well,
I'll just say this. I doubt Jordan Travis can win the Heisman. Is he completely out of it? No, he's not completely out of it.
I want him to get to New
break
York.
his way.
I think it'd be cool
I
if he
think
got
he
to
can
New
get
York.
that. I think he can actually really do. Another Super Chat. Sean, thank you. We appreciate you, Sean Noles.
Sean.
What section of the stadium would you recommend for the best view? Well, I go on the roof whenever I have to, but you won't be able to access that, Sean. So what I would suggest...
Not the press box, I can tell you that.
No.
We're a million miles high.
No, but I don't mind being high. It's a bird's eye view. It's like a game film, but I like going high on the 50.
All right, but where would you recommend? Where do you sit when you sit with your family?
My dad sits on the 40.
Okay. I don't know what you don't know what section that is, though.
30, whatever it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. 30, whatever it is.
31.
Sean,
hey,
30,
Dad.
Whatever it is.
Dad, what section is that? 31 that we're in? 31? Yeah, 31. There it is.
That's enough out of you. Calm down, please. Good grief. Get a hold of him. I see where you get it.
Yeah, section 31, row on the 40.
Yeah, okay.
That's a great place. Actually, I don't want you to go there, Sean. Get away from my side of the stadium. Go
There's
somewhere
plenty
else.
of seats in the Champions Club.
Yeah.
That's a good place to watch the game. They're all inside.
Yeah, so there's that. Marcus writes, can Verse break the rock tomorrow? Well, I mean, I'm sure he's allowed. I'll tell you what, if Miami's dumb enough to drop back and have that kid throw 40 times, Verse will break the rock.
Yeah.
Although Miami's offensive line is not terrible.
No, that's probably the strength of their team, right?
It's been weird. In the run game it is, but in the pass blocking, they've really struggled some. It's strange.
Well, some of that is him. He's not. He's
laying down in the pocket.
Falls down.
Yeah, very strange. I don't know. It's a tough ask. I do think that if you're Miami, you're probably going to chip Verse. You're probably going to
everybody does
keep a guy in. I mean, Jared Verse, everybody has had a really good year, and the only way you would know it is to go back and watch the games really closely and singularly focus on him. When you do, you see the way that he impacts a game because it's not in the stats.
Yeah.
Like in the stats, you'd say, well, there's so many
5
guys.
sacks,
Right.
I mean, nothing crazy.
But what's fascinating is to watch the way that they do it. It's like teams understand they have to shift their protections. zones towards verse. They have to chip against verse.
Don't touch me.
They use a running back against verse. They do all these things, and so it's fascinating to me to watch the way the teams recognize how dominant he could be, that he's a game wrecker. But the numbers don't tell you that. So if they ever leave him on an island and let him go to war against somebody in a drop-back pass game, I think he's going to have a great day.
And when you break down this matchup, and again, we admit and we qualify everything. Crazy shit happens in football all the time. You can lose to a team you're better than. It happens every week. But it would have to be a big upset. Obviously, it's a 2-touchdown spread. The 5 best players in the game tomorrow, are they all for Florida State?
Fletcher's pretty good. Bain's pretty good.
So, but you obviously have Verse, Johnny, Keon, Jordan. That's 4 of the 5 right there.
Yeah.
Assuming Keon and Johnny play, which we're assuming.
Yeah.
But we don't. That's not a certainty, but we're assuming.
It's close. I think you might be right. There may be one Miami player. The Alabama lineman that transferred for Miami.
Yeah, they have a good offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And Restrepo's good. Restrepo would play for you clearly.
But he wouldn't start over the 2 that you have.
In the middle. He'd be the slot guy.
Yeah, he'd be a slot guy.
But you also, I bet you have 8 of the 10 best players.
I think that's right.
Right? You know what I mean? Something like that.
I think Bain would probably start for us.
Probably. But Fisk is good.
He's good. He's good. Yeah.
So, but the point being, you have the better players. You have the home crowd.
Hey, listen, we have a better coach.
You have a better coach. Yes, you do. He can kneel on. He knelt on the ball at 2 yards.
He knows when to F to kneel.
Yeah, exactly.
My man knows when to kneel. Not just that, he's also getting better as a coach, I think. I mean, he's done a really good job of having his team prepared.
Yeah.
He's done a very good job of allowing those guys to lock in on what's important and not be distracted. I mean, how many? We won 14 games in a row? I mean,
15
games in a row. Sorry.
Get it right.
I'm losing track of all the games that they've won in a row. But, I mean, think about what they've done here, Corey. Like, you don't do that if you're not a good coach, especially from a 5-7 to a 10-3 to a undefeated season right now. I mean, there's a very distinct, a good possibility, percentage-wise, that Florida State finishes the regular season 12-0. Now, you think about that for a second. Even last year's 10-3 season featured 3 straight losses against the 3 good teams you played, not named LSU. So
you had a miracle win against Louisville. I mean, your starting quarterback got hurt, but that was a great win.
Yep.
You beat LSU by a point.
Yeah,
you beat
on
Florida
a blocked extra point
because your quarterback can't be tackled.
Right.
And you
so think about what they've graduated to, where they've come from. It really is pretty amazing, and that speaks to his coaching, the messaging, the consistency, the ability to obviously read the tea leaves with his team and understand what they need. He's put them
battle's
in. Yeah, the battle's end has helped a lot. Yeah, it's helped a lot.
Think about it, man. They were 3-10 his first 13 games, and then I happened at one press conference to ask a question.
Change the world.
Change the city at least.
Yeah.
Look at this place now.
Well, and in all seriousness,
but they're 24-6 since the 3-10 start.
Well,
4-6.
In all seriousness, all the jokes aside, like when you asked that question, it was a real question because, and I've said this before, and I think this is true of a lot of places. There are coaches who are good coaches who understand the game, and they take a job because they interview well and everything seems right.
Yeah.
And they gain no traction early on for whatever reason. Well, Mike had no chance to gain traction. It was a COVID season.
Yeah.
He couldn't recruit. He couldn't go on the road. He couldn't meet coaches throughout the state of Florida.
Not the most talented roster.
A terrible roster, right?
No quarterback.
And you were taking over a situation in which it wasn't one man's failure. It was 2.
Yeah.
So you handed over the keys to this machine and said, listen, the last coach that was here failed miserably and made a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
The locker room had a toxic culture and one that didn't believe in what they were being told by adults. You've got to come in and sell them on your vision, your messaging. And, oh, by the way, you got to find a way to raise the talent floor much better than what it is so you can compete. So even if you get kids to believe, if you don't get a kid that can play, it doesn't really matter. So can you use this newfangled transfer portal to your advantage? By the way, everybody had access to the transfer portal.
Of course they did, yeah.
Nobody did a better job than Mike Norvell, and accessing those players, getting them to buy in, get here, win now, flip the culture, keep the locker room together for the existing players, win the fans over, 9-0.
Well, also what I think needs to be understood is it ain't ever like Mike Norvell's a very good coach, but he's not the best coach that's ever lived.
Of course,
Jimbo Fisher was not the best coach that ever lived. Florida State is a special enough place where if you're competent and you do a good job, this place is special enough that you. Now, how many teams in the last 25 years have had 3 different coaches with 15-game winning streaks?
Right.
That's impossible. That does not happen. That's Florida State specific, and so he's done a very good job.
Is LSU the only?
I don't.
Would they be in there?
Know.
Maybe
They've probably not won 15 in a row. Like 15-game winning streaks are
hard to do. Yeah.
So they've had 3 different coaches in the last 25 years that have done that. There's only one that didn't. I don't know if he won 2 in a row. maybe went on a 2-game winning streak in 19. But yeah. So I think that kind of got lost a little bit. Is Mike Norvell did a great job. It's also Florida State. Like people do want to play here.
They
care. You have the history.
And you got geography,
and you got the in-state talent. It's a cool place to go to school. It's a cool place to play football. And Miami isn't.
Hasn't been in over 20 years.
Yeah. They
over 20 years.
When that guy threw the flag in the Fiesta Bowl, that was 21 years ago, right?
We could not have known that when Ohio State got the gift of that flag, it would be the ruination of the Miami program.
Yeah.
Tragic. Great call by that official, by the way.
Really
Great call. All right, here you go. Eric asks, outside of Mike Norvell, who is this year's MVP on the coaching staff?
Fuller, man. Right now.
That's the right answer.
Look, man, we have 4 games left. He might be awful. Who knows?
It's the right answer.
They've been good to very good all season long.
It's the right answer. Good job. Thanks for to the 300 plus watching and everyone on the deck here that's hanging out. Of course, we appreciate that. I know you guys. I hope can hear us. You guys can hear us. Okay, good.
Just looking at your texts.
So I'm making sure. No, I'm not looking at text. I'm reading questions from Tom from the chat. Man, come on, I'm not reading texts. I want to make sure that we don't have any others that I've been missing because I want to get to all the super chats as well. No, I think I got to everybody. So we're good. We're caught up. Oh, Mark writes in the super chat, will Corey break the rock at any point?
I mean, I feel like...
So, I've coached on the sidelines.
I know you have.
With Mike Norvell.
I know, I remember.
Yeah.
And Kenny Dillingham.
Called plays.
Yeah, I know, I remember.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like a plaque of my question should be, if they go on ahead and win something of significance this year, again, it goes back to that moment. And people might say it's just a coincidental that they went on a winning streak
but that he had conviction and believed in himself.
We talked about it, but nobody knows it behind the curtains. I told Mike what I was going to ask ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so he played like he didn't know it was coming.
It was a smart move on your part.
But how about that, man? Like, literally, you talked about good coaches. It could have, like, he was 3-10, and now he's been 24-6 in his last 30 games. What if Shaheem Brown doesn't block the extra point? What if
I brought this up the other day?
Make great plays in the Louisville game? What if you don't beat Carolina? Like, all these things. What if Parchment drops the ball? Like, all these little moments along the way where the game is so fickle, man. And one play here or there, a team loses confidence.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. You and I talked about that this year. I mean, think about that. Ohio State's goal line touchdown in the last play of the game where they had 10 men on the field.
Yes.
They win that game. That's why Ohio State's number 1 in the polls right now. It's not even a great win.
No, not anymore.
After you saw what it's Clemson. I mean, but it is nuts. You just got to find a way. But I do think consistency matters there. And I
guess my point was, some coaches, like, they can't overcome it. They can't rebound from a horrible start. Just a couple bad things happen, and you don't ever get to show how good you are. Norvell, Florida State, I wouldn't say they're patient. You got that? You hear me?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit.
I wouldn't say Florida State was patient because it was only 2 years in. But
they also had no choice.
But after that September, after the COVID year, when they're 0-4, the tea leaves were awful. And then they just completely flipped it, and now they're one of the best programs.
I think there's a case to be made for patience with certain guys, especially when your program's in disarray.
And you have to know the scenario, what he's taking over.
Yeah, and you got to understand the locker room's in shambles.
You want Miami to be patient with Cristobal?
I do.
I know.
I'd like them to stay patient.
Give
I want Napier to be there for a while too.
Napier's building something special.
Take your time, everybody. Take your time. Stay there 4 or 5, 6 years.
Building something
Give
special.
the man a chance.
Yeah.
Give him a chance. I do think it's kind of funny that LJ McCray is here this weekend. Going to be on the sidelines for Florida State, visiting.
Okay.
So soon after committing to Florida. I don't say I know anything on the inside, Corey. I've been told by people that LJ McCray is here.
Okay.
And he's interested in what's happening.
Corner pocket?
Well, I don't know. He might be. He might be inside party. And if you guys want to help LJ McCray make a better decision,
come on down
the corner pocket. But I know he's here, and I know there's a bunch of 5-stars here this weekend.
A lot. Yeah.
And as we wrap this show up, there are a ton of recruits here this weekend. The opportunity to separate yourself.
Michael Langston, we had him on Wake Up Warchant.
And he said it's the most they've ever had.
He said it's the most talent they've ever had, and I think he's talking about star talent. That they've ever had in any one Florida State football game since he's been covering it, which is remarkable. They've done a great job of number one being 9-0, but then having a moment like this in a game like this, in a marquee game like this, where the whole state and all their big time prospects and commits can come.
Well, it's really important that you win the game. I mean, let's not kid ourselves right now. I mean, go win the game and be great and separate yourself further. You know, Mike is understanding that rivalries matter more than, a game against Wake and a game against Pitt. He has always done a good job of pointing out that, hey, these games mean more. So I appreciate that about him. A lot of coaches lie and they'll sit there and tell you, oh, it's just another game. We got to be focused. All nonsense. No, Miami matters more.
He embraces it.
He does. So here's why I bring that up. If Florida State has a chance tomorrow, Corey, and they're up big. Now, at the end of the Pitt game, they could have kept their 30-point streak alive.
Yep.
But he was honorable, classy.
Yeah.
He just chose to go shake hands.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate that. F that. I wouldn't have done it. But he did. Okay, that's fine. But this is Miami.
Yeah.
You don't have to respect me.
No.
You don't have to ever.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to. In fact, you shouldn't. You should go out of your way to disrespect Miami. So if tomorrow's game goes to script and they start Van Dyke and he's hurt and he throws a pick six and Florida State gets out on top and this thing begins to avalanche, as I say, and Florida State's up like they were last year, in which Miami was humiliated at home 45-3 and got their quarterback ragdolled and looked like a bitch, and the whole thing was embarrassing. So imagine like we have this whole thing play out in a similar scenario.
Similar scenario, all right.
Does Mike run it up?
No. What he would do is put in his backups to run the offense.
But run the offense.
Oh, absolutely. Tate was
run the offense.
At the 5-yard line. Absolutely, yeah. And if you score 60, you score 60. Well, look, here's the thing. 4 years ago, when Mike was in his COVID deathbed, watching that game when they were in the Orange Bowl, Miami was throwing bombs.
Did you say COVID deathbed?
Well, did you see him after that game? Go back and watch that interview. Holy moly.
He's hurting you.
He was struggling.
I've had it. You've had it.
But they were throwing bombs up 52-3. Now, I know it's a different coaching staff, but screw that, man. Yeah, you do have all those recruits on the sidelines.
Okay.
45-3 mattered last year for a number of recruits.
Yes, it did.
If you can do something similar this year, absolutely.
All right, we got another one here. This is awesome. Super chat from Jordan.
Make it more than 14.
I like gambling too. Super chat from Jordan.
Okay.
Who is here?
Jordan Travis?
Sitting in front on the. Yeah, there he is. Shout out to my brother Jason in California. And a question: do you think Jordan's arms or legs win the game? Arm or leg? Arms would be amazing. If he starts throwing left-handed, that'd be Jesus Christ. Yeah, that'd be amazing. So, do you think his arm or his legs win the game tomorrow?
His arm. I think it's his arm. I don't expect him to be a huge running threat tomorrow. Well, just because he hasn't been.
But this game is different. This is different. Yeah.
But yeah, so I would expect his arm. I think you can't get them with the passing game. North Carolina proved that.
Well, they bring a lot of pressure, and I think the only reason I would say his legs are going to be a big part of this game is that he gets out of tough situations, and they blitz all the time.
They do.
Miami blitzes all the time, to your point. So, it takes Jordan to make a guy miss. It's 22 yards here. It's 17 there.
Yeah.
It's 51 here. You're in man. You got your back to him, and he takes off.
Nice to see.
51?
51-yard run?
Over under 51-yard run from Jordan Travis. Right?
I'll take that.
So, to me, I do think he could amass 50-plus yards on the ground tomorrow. I really do. If they're going to be hell-bent on bringing pressure, Jordan, remember the Florida game?
Yeah, I know.
Spinning out, making plays.
That Florida game, he didn't have Keon, and Johnny was dropping everything.
Agreed.
If Keon and Johnny are there,
but remember, Johnny's coming back after missing 2 weeks.
Man,
Keon's coming off an injury.
Johnny looked great in practice. I will just say that. He looked incredible. So that's a nice weapon to have. And if you have Keon back, okay, good luck blitzing. I don't think his mind now, when you blitz, is like, let me beat them with my legs. It's like, oh, okay.
But there are times where I say, beat them with your legs.
Buddy, I didn't do that the whole year.
Yeah, screaming, you've got 18 yards. Take those 18 yards. You're fast as hell. Let's go. I mean, this is what you do.
Dive forward. Quit sliding backwards.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's impressive. I think we got a couple more here to ask before we round it out. No, we're done? Just 2 minutes? Okay. Yeah, final thoughts. That's it. All right, so we both like Florida State to win tomorrow. I think we agree on that. I think it might be a bit of a slog early.
Yeah, sure.
I think Miami's defensive line is better than a lot of people realize.
You're not going to run on them early.
Well, first of all, Florida State doesn't run on anybody.
They don't.
So this is not an offensive line that overpowers people and can line up.
The screen game is their run game.
And the quick game and all those other things. So I think what they do is that they'll go back to spreading them out, throwing the ball with Jordan. Put the ball in the hands of a senior playmaker like Jordan Travis with those receivers and those tight ends. Loosen the box, get him out of the box, and then start running.
Right.
And you create the math problem with Jordan's legs here and there. Just to let him know.
Yeah.
You know, you've noticed that lately, haven't you? That every now and then, even when it's unsuccessful, they'll run him to let him know. Like
it's Pitt to start out the second half.
5 carries, 10 yards.
But it's just 5 yards.
Yeah, and it's now you got to respect it. You got to respect it. So I think that's a big part of what we see early tomorrow. Let Miami know, he's good. He can run.
Man, I just want to sum up because I know we got to go. Like, man, it's so cool after what we all went through collectively the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We're going to be in that stadium tomorrow. It's a 9-0 Florida State team playing Miami with a chance to get to 10-0, which means 11-0. Keep your playoff hopes alive. And Doak gets to be full throat. Like, this will be the last time before they do all the renovations where they take away all the seats.
Right.
This is the last chance for Doak.
Let's not bring anybody down here.
Well, I'm just saying it's going to be 75,000 people, and it's going to be crazy. And it's
going to be awesome.
It's cool that we get, obviously I want Florida State to win. I want them to win by 80 points. But no matter what, it's cool that we get to be in an environment like that again. I wasn't sure we'd get another game like this.
No, and you credit these kids, you credit Mike, you credit the loyalty, all that stuff. By the way,
the fans, Battles In, the whole Warchant, the whole gang. I credit all of this.
I credit Jeff Cameron for a lot of this. The consistency I've shown over this time is amazing.
For 20 years.
So, 25 years, sir. One thing to note here really quickly, that this might be offensive to you. If Corey were given the opportunity to break the rock, could he do it?
Oh, my God, over my fucking knee. Sorry, earmuffs. What a crazy question.
I appreciate. Well, his Achilles is better now, so you could really get into it. You can get into it.
There's no way I could lift that sledgehammer.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. For Corey Clark, good job, Tom Lang, and for everybody here at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, we appreciate you.
Go Noles.
Fuck Miami. Be good, everybody. Peace.